Say what's cracking, YouTube? It's your boy 16 to life, and I'm back like I'm on a parole violation. Yard down. Now let's hop right up into this video. So yesterday I uploaded a video of an interview I done with a dude by the name of Bam, who is an OG from Compton, and he spoke about his experiences in prison. And he's mentioned some times when he had gotten to some riots with the Hispanics. Now that video seemed to create a bit of a firestorm with some of my Hispanic viewers and my black viewers, basically saying that, Bam was prejudiced, he was racial, I was prejudiced and stuff like that. And I deeply disagree, right? Now, before I get into that, I want to say that one of the first stories that I did, I uploaded a story talking about when the IE dudes, me and my homies, got into it with the Bloods in 2003 in Ironwood on Sea Yard. Now, at the time of that story, at the time I uploaded that story, it was about 17 or 18 years old. But then I noticed in the comments, I still got a lot of angry comments, a lot of hate, basically a lot of blood saying there's no way dudes from IE can get the best of no LA Bloods. It was a lot of hateful comments and stuff like that. So doing that story made me realize that when a person aligns, affiliates, or associates himself with a particular group, organization, gang, etc., no one wants to see whoever they affiliate themselves with. They don't want to see that affiliation spoke about in a negative light, whether it's true or whether it's not true. But what I definitely want to say is, regardless of color, race, structure, hood, clique, nobody is exempt from taking a loss. So back to this story now about Bam. So a lot of people pointed out certain things that he said, right? And to me, I felt like they really didn't clearly pay attention to the interview. And when he started talking about getting into it with the Hispanics, I feel some of my Hispanic viewers got caught up in their feelings and put their logic to the side, right? So let me point out some things that I felt was important, right? So now, for one, like I said, let me say this also too. For as long as I've been doing my YouTube stories, and even before I've been doing the stories and just watching YouTube, I've always seen the blacks in California prisons be painted in a negative light. Blacks always get the short end of the stick, according to these stories. There's always negative things said about blacks. Blacks is always losing, running, and scary. And I think a lot of times the Hispanics may fail to forget or don't take into account all the negative things that's said about blacks. I remember watching one story from a program called Stories Told by a Current Prisoner, and there was a Hispanic dude who was talking about he had started going to the prison in the 80s and how big blacks were. He said, but later on he found out that all the muscles didn't do anything but help them run quicker in the riots and stuff like that. So I say that to say I've seen several stories with people making negative stories about blacks, comments dripping with sarcasm and all types of stuff, But so anyway, so now during this story that Bam was telling about a riot that happened in New Folsom, he said the riot happened because a black dude slapped a Hispanic dude because the Hispanic owed him some money. So let's pause right there real quick. Like now, if we was to believe the narrative that's always being painted and the stories that's always being told about blacks being scared of Hispanics, the black dude would have never slapped the Hispanic, because we're scared of Hispanics, right? And I'm just keeping it 100. Men are men, right? No one is not necessarily scared of another person just because he's from a certain hood, race, gang, or whatever. You have people in prison that don't care, right? But also, Bam pointed out that soon as Bam said the black dude slapped the Hispanic, Bam said the dude only slapped him because his car got deep. He said that he never would have slapped him if his car didn't get deep. So my question is, if Bam was prejudiced or he's racist, why did he then basically turn around and say that the dude was a buster and the dude only did that because he had a bunch of homies on the yard? If he was so, in my opinion, if Bam was so hatred against Hispanics, he wouldn't have made his own black people and Crips look negative on YouTube in a negative light. To me, he was just straight shooting and keeping it 100. And I totally was able to understand what he said, because I have seen individuals like that. I've seen dudes who maybe in the month of January, they got 4 homies on the yard and they soft and humble. Then come June, they carding grew to maybe about 25. Now they're walking around. Now they're bad and acting tough, doing and saying things they wasn't doing when they only had 4 homies on the yard. So, Bam is saying that this dude would have never even done this had his homies not been deep. And so, I definitely understood what he was saying, because I have witnessed that. And in the same light, right, that goes for everybody. You have Hispanic people who act tough because they are deep. They're deep. I happen to look up the racial makeup of California prisons, right? So I seen that they said the Hispanics they make up 44.1% of the population in prison in California, and blacks make up 28.3% of the population in California prisons, right? So I remember about a year and a half ago, I was getting ready to go work out or whatever, and I seen this story by this white dude who I had never seen. The story, for whatever reason, has since been taken down now. But I made a story. It was called Who Runs California Prisons, which was inspired by this dude by the name of Powder, who tells prison stories. Powder was saying how he was in the county jail, Riverside County Jail, and how the Sureños and the whites hooked up to take off an attack on the blacks. So he said it was about maybe, now, and my story is still up, that I did. He said it was maybe about 10 blacks, like about 30 Hispanics and whites. He said the blacks turned around and gave them hell, right? And so, to keep it real, the reason why I put that story up and I was inspired by that, because I know that, right, I've been with some soldiers and I've been with some warriors, and I know that every black that's in prison is not running and tucking his tail, right? And so to hear this white dude get up here and tell this story in an unbiased manner, to me, honestly, it made me proud of the blacks that he was talking about, because I know from experience that blacks, we don't tuck our tail. You have some individuals who do, but it's not they try to paint the picture of all blacks tuck their tail, and also, if you go to that story that I did, that I'm talking about right there, Who Runs Cali Prisons, I believe it's a Hispanic dude by the name of Bruno. He shares a similar experience. He said, yeah, chill, we was in the county jail. I think he said San Diego. He said 20 Sureños took off on 7 blacks, and the blacks held their own. So all I'm saying is, we can't go with the narrative that blacks always get the short end of the stick, because that's just false, right? So is a person willing to tell me that from all the times that the Hispanics and blacks have been in prison in California, beefing from time to time against each other, let's just say from the 1960s, the blacks have never smashed or never participated in a win against the Hispanics? Is that what anyone is out there that's willing to tell me that the blacks always take the losses? And that has nothing to do with being racist or whatever. Prison is prison. You win some, you lose some. And so, like I said, of course, when we align ourselves with a particular organization, we like to see ourselves the victor. We all love to be associated with winning, even if it's just a football team. You may have a dude, and when football season comes in prison, that's one of the more volatile times too, man. People get excited, they get they get angry sometimes, or at least on the black side, and you have dudes be ready to fight behind a football game. So it just all depends on who a person associates itself with, right? And so and then also back to Bam, because sometimes I digress, right? Bam said that he also turned right around and said that he's been in situations where blacks will let other blacks be harmed by Hispanics. So my question is, if Bam was a racist, or if he was prejudiced, why would he paint Crips and why would he paint blacks in a negative light? If that was his thing, right? Being racist. I believe he's just a straight shooter. He's calling it like he sees it. And then, in my personal opinion, right, this is how I took it, because I know he's been going to prison since the 1980s. I took it as he was just speaking on the difference between when he first went to prison in 1980s, and then maybe later on at whatever point blacks started losing their structure and their unity. And I've pointed out many times on my page and many stories that that is something that definitely weakened the blacks. You know, having no structure, having no organization. So yeah, had he been racist, why would he have pointed that out? Many times too, blacks have came on my page and they've told me, Chill, you know what? Man, all you do is make blacks look negative. All you do is point out the negative stuff about blacks, man. You know, you shouldn't do that and blah, 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 right? I told them like this, right? Man, I share my experiences, right? If I happen to see something that I feel is right or not right, I'm going to speak on it, man. So in my opinion, yeah, you know, when you have a lot of internal conflict among the blacks, I'm going to address that if I feel that's an issue and that weakens the prison structure in blacks among the blacks, right? And so, you know, that's something that Bam pointed out, and it's something that I could understand because I've experienced it and I've been through it. So even on the story that I did with Bam, the interview, right? You have a lot of people in the comments saying that, well, of course, you know, you blacks don't check paperwork. One dude said that he was in Tracy DVI. He said 60% of the blacks there was either child molesters or snitches. And so my reply back to him was, if blacks aren't checking the paperwork, then how can you put a number on what percentage of blacks what percentage of blacks that are there are snitches? To me, it makes no sense, right? But like I said, other races, some of them have no problem coming on YouTube, making disparaging remarks about blacks, or just saying what they feel is true, sharing their experiences, right? When one race shares his experience about another race, sometimes it's not racial. Sometimes he's not prejudiced. He's just sharing his perception, right? So I think that for all the Hispanics who got upset, you have to realize the same thing, that when a black says something about a Hispanic, sometimes it's not racial. Sometimes it's not prejudice. It's just that person's experience, right? I remember one time, man, a dude left, in my opinion, an extremely ridiculous comment in my comment section. He was a Hispanic dude, right? And like I say, I'm not taking no shots against the Hispanics. No, you know, I came on here many a times, my page, and said, man, I give the utmost respect to the Southerners for their structure and the way they push a line, you know. And so for a person to say, oh, Chill, you're racist and stuff like that, like I say, I just feel that he's caught up in his feelings, right? But the comment that the dude left on my page, he was saying something about, Chill, there's no way a Southerner can drop a kite, because every time he writes a letter, he has to let his cellie check it or something like that. And so in his reasoning was, because of that policy within the Hispanic structure, there's no way that Hispanic could drop a kite. But in my mind, that was ridiculous, right? Because even though that may be a policy, there's still 50 other ways that a dude can drop a kite, give up some information, or whatever. Okay, and so let's say this, right? Like I said, I'm not taking any shots at anybody. Let's just say there's only 20 Hispanics in the SNY, right? Well, how did those 20 get there? If they can't alert the administration to a problem that, you know, that they need to get off the line or whatever. How did they get there? There must, if they can't write and drop it in a kite and saying, hey, I need to get off the line, how did they get there? So my like I said, my reply to what he was saying was, man, that is crazy. Just because you guys have that rule in place, people still get to the other side some type of way. So that's all I'm saying, that sometimes, you know, I feel that some of these people who respond in the comments, sometimes they let emotions take them away from being logical, you know. Like I said once before, I'll reiterate it again. Race, color, structure, affiliation, association does not make a person exempt from failing to meet the expectations placed on him by whatever prison organization he has aligned himself with, man. We know people from all backgrounds, all structures, all hoods fail to live up to expectations that are expected of people in prison. And that's just a fact. So it's not racial if you point something out about another person. You know what I'm saying? It's not racial all the time. Just like, for instance, right here. If I talk about an instance that I got into it, an incident where I got into it with the Bloods, that doesn't make me an all-out blood hater. But of course, a person who is aligned with the Bloods, he's going to feel a certain type of way because I'm talking about what he represents. And nobody wants to see the organization they represent be spoke of in a negative light. Same issue, smaller subject. You have an issue for those people who don't know sometimes, and this is the issue with blacks and Hispanics, with LA and the Inland Empire and San Diego. A lot of people from LA, whether they're black or Hispanic, feel that being from LA automatically makes them tougher and then the gangs from San Diego and the gangs from Inland Empire. Like, the gangs out there are not as tough as the gangs from LA. A dude actually came in my comment section maybe a few months back. He said, "Hey, chill, no disrespect, but you know the Inland Empire and San Diego is the little brother and little sister to the to LA, right?" So, like I said, I was locked up for 24 years. There were two times I seen the Hispanics get into it with each other when it was unsanctioned, because I don't know if you guys know that the Hispanics are not allowed by their own policies to fight or put their hands on each other out in public, you know, if it's not sanctioned, right? So one of the fights that I seen one time was a melee in Ironwood on A-Yard, maybe around 2000, somewhere up in there. Some Hispanics were leaving, coming up out of the work exchange. That's a little where you go behind these fences, you go back to the work. They have educational classes, trades and stuff like that. They was coming out, and it was about maybe 3 or 4 dudes from San Diego got into a fight with 3 or 4 Hispanics from Los Angeles, right? And at that prison, often the Hispanics from LA bumped heads with the San Diego Hispanics. Even though they was all together, it was always a lot of internal conflict going on, right? So now, so if you happen to have a Hispanic from Los Angeles say something about a Hispanic from San Diego, that didn't mean he hated all Hispanics from San Diego or whatever. It was just he was discussing whatever he was discussing. And see, the problem is when one person from one race says something about a person from another race, it could be 100% true, but now, of course, that particular statement involves more people. More people feel a connection to that particular statement, right? And then, of course, you're going to have some people who come along and, due to their deep love and respect for their own race, culture, so on and so forth, they may say, "Hey, well, this person's racist." You know what I'm saying? Even though the statement that the person may be making could be 100% true. And so, you know, I'm just looking at my notes here, right? Because I don't know. Okay, cool. So I didn't make this video a couple times or two because I messed up a time or two. So I don't know if I'd already said it in this video, but so I'll say it briefly right here. Maybe about a year and a half ago, I was getting ready to get dressed, and I was looking at YouTube, and I seen a story by this white dude by the name of Powder. I'd never seen the story before or whatever, or never seen him before. And he was talking about how in the Riverside County Jail, the whites in that county jail and the Hispanics, he said it was about 25, 30 of them, they hooked up together and took off on the black dudes. He was like 10 black dudes up in there. And he said the black dudes not only held their own, the black dudes gave them the business, right? And so when I heard him say that, to be honest, I was happy, right? I was happy because I had often heard many times on YouTube's how the blacks were getting the shorty end of the stick, right? And not only were they getting the shorty end of the stick, but I could tell just by listening to the person who was telling the story, their voice dripping with sarcasm. You know, you can tell a story, right, and say, okay, yeah, man, we whooped those dudes, right? But during the course of the story, when you're making comments and statements that belittle those other individuals, the statements that you're making clearly show you have some type of deep animosity and bias against the person that you're talking about. That's when it starts to make me think, okay, now this person is holding on to a grudge, and some of that story may not be some of that story may not be true, right? Because, I think people fail to realize that at times, of course, yes, the California prison structure is gonna get violent, and it definitely is going to get racial. You know what I'm saying? You have people from the Hispanic side, you have people from the black side who are involved in those wars, and everybody's not prejudiced. For some people, it's just business, and then some people do let the experiences that they went through cause them to have prejudice feelings, animosity, hate, or whatever. But it's not always like that. So I just don't think that, me interviewing a person and letting him share his experiences suddenly makes me prejudiced. Like I said, I did this video a time or two. I messed up a time or two, so I don't think that I stated that in this video. But I interviewed a Hispanic dude by the name of Sticks, and that interview can be found on my page. I believe it's called Sureños versus Blacks in the LA County Jail. And I posed the same questions to him. I asked him who runs the LA County Jail, what race runs prison, and he chose to answer the questions the way he chose to answer it. So I've also extended the opportunity many times especially when I first started doing YouTube. I would see Hispanics making comments or doing interviews. So I'd extend the olive branch out to them. Hey man, well, you'd like to come on my story? I'd like to come on my channel and share your story. And none of them was willing to do it, right? None of them is willing to do it. So when I give an opportunity to an individual to share his story, if the dude doesn't want to take the opportunity, I don't know what to say, and like I say, I don't know. When I'm interviewing a person, I try to go into journalist mode, right? And so I'm asking questions because I am also genuinely interested in certain topics, just like you guys. Even though I did a bunch of time, I'm also interested in another man's story, right? And so I don't believe by me asking questions makes me racist, you know what I'm saying? But also, by being involved in prison, I know sometimes some of the narratives and some of the stories that's being told, particularly about the blacks, are not true. The blacks often get painted in a negative light, often. And so just because a person may say something about another race doesn't necessarily make it racial, or that person doesn't have to be prejudiced if that person just happens to share an experience that he had. You know what I'm saying? I definitely believe that when I first went to prison in 1996, things with the blacks vastly changed from that period to the time that I paroled in 2018. It's well known that the blacks are extremely splintered, and I just felt like every 6-7 years, the communication, the unity even got worse, because if nobody's not there keeping that structure together, that organization together, that unity together, it's going to get worse, because you have dudes coming in there feeling that they can do what they want to do. So to me, it was clearly evident in what Bam was saying Bam also mentioned how now in prison, you'll have blacks sit back and let something happen to another black by another race. So like I say, once again, my whole thing is, if Bam was prejudiced against Hispanics, why would he even put that out there? Why would he even make the blacks and the Crips or whoever look bad or paint them in a negative light? You know what I'm saying? To me, he was just straight shooting. He was just saying he was just telling it how it was, how he witnessed things, how he experienced things. And like I said, sometimes when people are in the group that's being talked about, if it's not in a positive light, then they automatically want to paint that person as a racist, when sometimes things are just true. You know what I'm saying? Everybody takes wins, everybody takes losses. And for a person to believe anything other than that, it's not logical. But anyway, y'all already know what it is, man. It's your boy 16 to Life. Resume normal program.